The next thing I want to talk about is measuring impact. This seems like such a silly thing to talk about. We are awarding funding to people. Our funds are either raised, it's donated. We at some point need to go back to our communities and to our board members and to our staff and say, look, here's the impact that we had. It's a broad term because impact will be relevant and different for every one of you. You all offer different types of programs. We work with an organization in a rather large city who does funding for people of high need. Again, it could be people who need housing assistance. It might be people who need assistance with healthcare bills. How they define success will be different than an organization providing a $3 million research grant to somebody that's trying to solve a highly contagious disease, right? That's okay. So the reason why I want to bring this up is that your overall measuring of impact will be very specific to you. You need to kind of look at your programs and using kind of SMART goals and SMART planning to identify like when you set out to offer a grant or offer a scholarship or whatever your use case is, why did you do this, right? Like what keeps you up at night? What are you trying to fund and why? From there, we need to work backwards to figure out how do we define impact. And those are what we call KPIs, right? So there's key performance indicators that we need to be collecting from applicants that we can then go back to our community and to our team and say, look, here's the funding that we had, here's what we did with the money, and look at the great stuff we were able to do. Very high level, I get that. I do have kind of an example here of like how we want to hold people accountable. The reason why I bring this up though is the actual creating of a grant reporting template for you or like a dashboard is not complex whatsoever. It isn't, right? Once you know what your KPIs are, you can build these really great dashboards that you can then pull up. You can make them publicly available to show, how things are going. What's hard is powering that dashboard because you have to be collecting data from the grantees that reports back to you how funds are being utilized and what the impact that they have is. So that's where I want to take over this conversation. So we need to make sure it's extremely easy for you to hold people accountable and to submit to you the KPIs and the metrics that you need to build out those dashboards. So how do we visualize that? If the goal is to get to something like this, where you have, and this is an example, obviously, a big overarching high level, how are the funds used, the age, the gender disbursements, the performance of the different grants that we have. Again, these are all going to be unique to you. How do we get to here, right? We can't just make up these charts. This data has to get pulled from somewhere. So what I want to do is kind of walk through what the grantee experience would look like. So at least in reviewer, we got Michael again. Michael is a recipient to a grant. You will create some type of grant reporting schedule. It could be once a quarter, it could be once a year, it could be once ever. That's again totally up to you. The idea, though, is that Michael, who already is in reviewer because he filled out his main grant application, went through judging, went through selection, will just come back in. You will notice that we also have some pretty cool communication tools as well. So you can send out like notifications that say, hey, it's time for your Q2 grant reporting template, right? We work with a city who does grant funding from the American Rescue Plan. Literally for 4.5 years, grant recipients once per month will come into our system and fill out a brand new grant reporting template. And that looks like this. So they jump up to their what I call supplemental forms, which again, if you remember earlier on is how we collected references. And they will just click add new. And again, this is all workflow specific. Obviously, those are not meant to be submitting grant reporting templates. We won't have this option. They click add new and they select from a list, like what type of report is it? So again, it could be like an impact report, social impact, it could be their quarterly report. These are made up examples. That example I just gave where you have people who come back once a month literally have January report, February report, and it goes January through December. They click on the month and then boom, the grant reporting template pops up. And so your grantees can save, they can log out, they can come back later. You can actually have metrics so you can track who's in progress. You can see exactly who's supposed to be filling out a grant reporting template, if they've done it or not. If they haven't done it, send them reminder messages. And then once it's been done, then come in to review it. Very common example here. Again, this is where this is an organization grant, right? So this organization receives funding for something. So again, you want to ask them for a series of questions, right? So like, what was the total amount requested? How much did you receive? What was the project start and end dates? Again, I like to ask things like, what was your stated initial goal to use with the funds? What were your actual outcomes versus what your expected outcomes would be? This again is on a some type of time-based period. Tell us more about the discrepancy between your goals and your actual outcomes. Let's talk more about some metrics. Again, it could be, this will be very unique to you, but what was your target metric versus your actual metric? Let's talk more about both qualitative and quantitative impacts. Let's talk more about budgets. So if I cut you a check for X number of dollars, how much was actually utilized? Was it a fraction of it? Do you need more money, right? What's going on? Tell us more about your successes and challenges, what's working, what's not working. And then ultimately, moving forward, what's your plan? And then in Q2, in this example, they will come back and they're going to submit another grant report that should hopefully mimic the plan that was being submitted. So now we have all this really powerful, comprehensive data coming in from their initial grant application, the grant reporting templates, kind of going back to that first slide. We can now create a bunch of logic and cool custom reports that then ultimately power these comprehensive dashboards. And then from here, you can kind of dive deep into the weeds on any metrics you need. So again, really powerful things that are happening here, but the only way that this works is if we have grantees coming back and giving you the data that you need in a very digestible manner.